Hello, everyone, and welcome to Amara's Voice. I'm a teacher and an uplifter, which means I see people as already whole, see them as vibrant, joyful, magnificent, and powerful. I see the source within them, which leads them to a powerful truth from within. I see them living in alignment with self, having such wonderful beliefs that make them stay in their joyful, natural element. Today, I'm pondering self-control. Now, this is one of those topics that almost everyone agrees on. It sounds intelligent, it sounds disciplined, it sounds like something a person who has their life together would naturally embody. And as I begin to define it, I know you'll find yourself agreeing with me because it makes sense. But I also know this, you're not someone who just accepts things because they sound good. You, my listeners, want to understand deeply, to live truthfully and experience life fully. And that's why this conversation matters. Because if we are wrong about self-control, even slightly, then we may be practicing something that quietly limits us, while believing it's helping us. Self-control is defined as the cognitive ability to manage impulses, emotions, and behaviors in order to achieve long-term goals. It is often viewed as something you must practice so you can overcome immediate desires and resist certain impulses. It is said to be rooted in the prefrontal cortex, where you're able to regulate your reactions and navigate temptation with awareness. You manage your emotions so you can respond more effectively, and it supports your ability to focus by maintaining attention on what matters. It is commonly described as something you train like a muscle, so that over time, doing what you truly want becomes easier and more natural. And this all sounds so beautiful. As you listen, I'm sure you find yourself agreeing with it. It feels right, it sounds logical, and it's something we've all been taught to value. However, what if I told you that what we consider to be self-control is actually a very limiting way of looking at it? In fact, this perspective focuses mostly on the physical aspect of who you are, which is only a small part of your true self. As someone who truly deeply values feelings and emotions and understanding them fully, I have often felt that what I was being told about self-control was at the very least incomplete. I've often thought that if someone can get you to control yourself in that way, then they can, in a sense, rule over you. Because to control yourself, the way we've been told, is to limit your ability to truly live. I know that's a big statement, and yet there's truth in it. When you try to control your feelings and emotions in that way, you don't actually experience life fully. And more importantly, you never truly come to know yourself. In doing so, you end up denying a part of who you really are. And if you're honest with yourself, you already know this doesn't feel like freedom. It feels like effort. It feels like holding something in place, and we don't want to live a life of constant effort just to maintain control. You say, for example, I feel so angry, but I'm going to control this anger. No one will ever know I'm angry, and eventually it will go away. When you're able to do that, you pat yourself on the back and say, I did good. Or you feel an intense desire and you say, nope, not now, and you push it down. And yes, on the surface, this all sounds good. It sounds like control, but it only works if you eventually come back and truly deal with the emotions you've been pushing aside. And most of the time, we don't. We've come to believe as a group that self-control is simply the ability to manage our physical urges. But this kind of self-control will never bring you true satisfaction, because while you may appear in control, the urges remain. You haven't actually resolved anything. You've just set it aside and what is set aside does not disappear. It returns often with even greater intensity until eventually you either explode or continue living in quiet denial of yourself. Okay, so what is self-control? First, I'll actually commend whoever came up with the word, because to me the answer is right there. Self-control. But before I share what that truly means, I want to briefly remind you of something I've spoken about before, which is the self, the inner self. I'll be going into this in more detail in a future episode, but for now it's important to understand what the inner self truly is. The self is the inner being within you, the larger you, the part of you that accesses your subconscious mind and is connected to all that is. The self is that quiet voice within you that is always guiding you back to your natural, joyful element. It is the part of you that you align with, the infinite aspect of who you are, always leading you toward the path of least resistance and toward your well-being. I've also spoken about how to get into alignment, and simply put, it begins with feeling good. Feeling good brings you into alignment, and when you consciously focus on feeling good, you naturally find yourself in that state more often. And you can always tell when you're in alignment because there is a sense of ease, clarity, and flow in what you're doing. All the processes, meditation, journaling, appreciation, pointing out the best in situations and in people, following your passions, etc. These are not random practices. They are all ways of guiding you back to that feeling so you can return to alignment more consistently and more easily, and eventually begin to prefer it over anything else. So self-control is not something that you do. When you truly embody self-control, you become an aligned being. When you practice feeling good across different areas of your life and you find yourself in true alignment, and alignment is not something you can force. Your inner self naturally begins to take the lead in your life. You are under new management, and this is not something intrusive or uncomfortable that you would resist it. It is something you welcome, because when the self is in control, you feel good and you find that you do not want anything else but that state. You experience clarity, knowledge, wisdom, enthusiasm, joy, and all the high vibration feelings working together. So self-control becomes the state where you are so aligned with your inner self that even the negative emotions, the ones that usually build into impulses you feel the need to control, they do not rise in the same way. They are no longer an issue. Here you're not fighting urges or suppressing feelings. The things that once felt like problems simply do not show up. And I do not teach what I have not lived. I can tell you from experience that when you are truly under self-control, even the desire to fight what you are trying to overcome fades away on its own. The temptation does not rise, and the impulse you once had to manage with effort completely disappears. Now, the self has taken over. You are functioning from your higher self. The inner self begins to guide and in many ways protect you from the things you once conceived as negative, simply because you are practicing alignment more consistently. The self is pure, positive energy, full of goodness. It desires for you to be healthy, to be wealthy, to have an abundant life, to be alive, thriving, feeling good, fit and energetic, so that the human expression of you is fully aligned with that goodness. Your body responds, your cells work in harmony, your organs function as they should, and your entire being begins to reflect that alignment. This is how you truly enjoy the human experience as the self expresses through you, allowing you to participate in the continuous expansion of all that is. That is self-control, when the inner self has taken the lead within you. Your thoughts are in alignment and they naturally make you feel good. The emotions your body expresses support you rather than work against you. When you're under self-control, the urges you once struggled to overcome do not even arise. You begin to understand how the universe works, and from that understanding, there is no reason to yell at anyone or cause harm to another person. You honor your body through movement and by nourishing it well. You don't feel the need to buy things you don't need simply because there is no impulse driving you to do so. When the self is in control, the things that once bothered you lose their hold on you. The emotions that arise are no longer something you have to manage or suppress. The urge to lash out, to argue, or to overindulge in actions that bring you pain simply fades away. They no longer present themselves in the same way, and in many cases they disappear altogether. I've been asked, how are you able to not follow the news? How are you able to stay off social media? And I simply say, the urge is not there. Before I couldn't stop myself, I had to watch the show. I would overindulge in things that were taking me away from what truly mattered. It felt like something I had to manage or control. But now there is no effort in it. There is simply no desire. Now I am under new management and the self has taken over. The self begins to take over more and more as you practice being in alignment. You start to follow the inner voice, those gentle nudges that tell you you've been on WhatsApp, for example, for too long. Close your eyes now. You need rest. You're driving too fast. Slow down a bit. Read this book. Get up and move your body. Don't eat all the cookies in the cookie jar. You hear them. You've always had them and you know them. But as you continue practicing being receptive to these nudges, they become clearer, stronger, and easier to follow. And the more you listen, the more natural it becomes, until before you know it, you are living under self-control. People around you begin to wonder what happened to you. And even you pause at times and ask yourself, what happened to me? Those situations that once triggered you, where you would have argued or needed to control yourself, no longer arise in the same way. The reactions simply are not there. In this space, you begin to see everyone in your reality differently. You recognize them as mirrors, as reflections offering you insight into yourself. They become opportunities for growth and understanding. You no longer feel the need to blame, condemn, or criticize. Instead, you find yourself asking, why am I attracting this? What belief am I still holding that is allowing this experience in my life? And in that awareness, there is a sense of ease, there is freedom. This is self-control. When myself is in control, I get gentle guidance saying, let's read this book, let's write, let's get up and move for a few minutes. The body needs it. Let's rest tonight. No need to read anything. Let's play with the kids. Let's reach out to this person and see how they're doing. It becomes easier and easier to follow, and it always feels like a partnership, like you're moving as one. When you begin to live like this, you find yourself becoming deeply attached to this way of being, almost addicted to being in self-control. Addicted because there is nothing else that feels this natural, this clear, and this good. You don't have the same impulses to eat unhealthy, and even if you do choose something that isn't ideal, you don't turn against yourself for it, because the self does not blame you. It never makes you feel like you are bad. It simply reminds you of who you are. And from that place, there is nothing else you would rather be doing than what the inner self is guiding you toward, because you can feel that it is good for you. This is the being that you truly are. And as you continue in this alignment, you begin to notice something else. You are magnetic. Things that are good for you begin to come to you more easily, and what is not aligned with you begins to fall away. The universe starts to remove what is not beneficial to you. That person you once held on to, even knowing they were not right for you, may simply fall away. And when they do, you're not left longing for their return. There is a sense of peace in their absence. This is a shift that is so powerful. In this state, you accept who you are and where you are. You no longer spend time suppressing your thoughts, emotions, and actions. Instead, you are open and aware of them. You begin to recognize that your thoughts are now in alignment with the thoughts your inner self holds about you. There is a sense of flow, of ease, where energy moves freely. You are not less of yourself. You are all of yourself. And in this space, you embody self-control not as something you have to practice or force, but as something that you naturally are. So now, let's redefine self-control. It is simply the ability to align with the self. Here you do not suppress, you simply are. People who are under self-control have discipline and clarity, but not because they're forcing it. They no longer look at their thoughts and emotions as things to manage or suppress. Instead, they understand that thoughts and emotions are information, guiding them and showing them where they are vibrationally. They pay attention to this feedback and use it to create better, not only enhancing their own experience, but also the experience of those around them. They understand that their actions are a natural extension of their thoughts, and when their thoughts are in alignment, their actions require no force. In this state, you come to know the joy of being aligned with your true self, the ease of it, the natural flow of all of it. You find yourself in awe of the self, and anything that separates you from that truth no longer satisfies you. You become deeply drawn to alignment, almost addicted to it. There is no need to suppress anything because you are no longer resisting yourself. You simply are. My wonderful listeners, this is self-control. I am Amara, and I'm pondering for the ease of pondering. I love you all. Focus on feeling good. Bye.